So we are going to continue. This lecture is supposed to be part of the last one. So we're going to run through it quickly and then move to the lecture we're supposed to be having at this time. So we're looking at how to write a synopsis. How to write a synopsis. That is what we're looking at now. How to write a synopsis. Now, whether you are a freelance writer or you want to author your own book, you need a synopsis. And I'm going to tell you what a synopsis is and show you how and the rules to writing synopsis. I want you to pay 100% attention to this. Somebody just told me about a book that he wrote, and the book was selected by a publishing house. Before a publishing house will select your book to be published, you must show them a synopsis of that book. It's a must. If you are writing as a freelance writer, you want to help somebody write a book, you must also create a synopsis. Because you cannot just tell me, say, write a book for me about financial prosperity. I need to show you a skeleton of what will be in that book. And you have to approve it before I can go ahead and write. So that is why as a freelance writer, you also need to write what we call a synopsis. So what is a synopsis? The next slide. Let's move. So a synopsis is a brief summary or general survey of something. A synopsis is a brief summary or a general survey of something. It is an outline of the plot of a play, a film, or a book. So we want to write a book. We know the title of the book, we know the subtitle. But we want to create an outline of what will be in the book, what will be in each chapter, and what will be under each of the chapters. Because when you have chapters, you must have sub-chapters also. In every chapter, you have sub-chapters. So you need to draw an outline. So that outline is a summary of what will be inside the book. That is what we call a synopsis. So a synopsis is an outline of a book or a film, okay, or a play. And it is just a brief summary of the general survey of the book. Next one. When and why you need a synopsis. Who needs a synopsis and why do you need a synopsis? If you want to submit a nonfiction manuscript to publishers, you need a synopsis. Because if you want the best publishing house in Nigeria to publish your book, or the best publishing house in the UK to publish your book, they will ask you, send us a synopsis of that book. They want to see a summary, an outline of what is in the book. Now, why are you sending them a synopsis? Because they don't have the time to read the whole book. Imagine they have 100 applicants submitting books to them that they want to publish. They don't have the time to read your whole 200 pages. So they need a summary of that book, an outline of that book, for them to quickly go through it and decide if your book is worth publishing or not. So that is one reason why you need a synopsis, because if you want to submit your manuscript to publishers, you don't need to submit the entire manuscript. You only need to submit what? A synopsis. So if your book is 200 pages, your synopsis might just be maybe 10 pages. And that 10 pages summarizes everything that is in that 200-page book. Okay? So you send it. Number 2, why do you need a synopsis? If you are a freelance writer, and I told you that a freelance writer helps other people to write their books. But before you can write a book for another person, you must first create an outline so that your client will see the outline and say, okay, this is good, let's add this or let's remove this before you go ahead to write the book. Now, the question comes, should I write a synopsis before I write a book? Or I should write a synopsis at the end of the book? What do you think? Before. Okay, all of you say before, right? Okay. So there are two ways. You can write before, or after. I'll tell you when to write a synopsis before and when to write a synopsis after. And cases where you have to write a synopsis before and after. Now, if I want to write my own book, I'm not submitting it to any publisher. I'm not writing for somebody. I'm writing for myself. I have the idea that I want to write about. But if I just start writing, I might get to chapter 2 and I'm stuck. I don't know what else to write. Why am I stuck? Because I didn't have an outline of what to follow. So a synopsis now helps me to say in chapter 1, this is what I will write. This is what will be the subtitles under chapter 1. And then chapter 2, this is what and what I will write. So you already have what you want to write. So it is impossible for you to get stuck. If you get stuck, it's not because you don't know what to write or what next topic to write about. It is because you have not thought about, you know the topic to write about because you have an outline. You only need to expand your brain and think to know what to write. So in that case, before you start writing your book, as an author that wants to write your own book, you should have a synopsis. You should have an outline of what you want to be in chapter 1 and what you want to be in chapter 2, like that. Is that clear? Good. Then, if I want to give my book to a publishing house, it means that I have already finished writing the book. But the publishing house does not want to see the whole book. They want to see a summary of the book. So in that case, I can write a synopsis after I have written my book. Is that clear? Good. Then, there are times when I write an initial synopsis for the book before I start writing. And when I finish writing, that initial synopsis I wrote, that I used to write that book, is not good enough to submit to a publishing house. Because when you finish writing your book, you will realize that you might even need to change some of the outline that you wrote before. So that initial synopsis might not suffice. You now need to create a new synopsis that better captures the book, the content of the finished book that you are sending to the publishers. Is that clear? So, good. And like I said, if you're a freelance writer, you need to show your clients. Take note, if you're a freelance writer, you are not writing a synopsis after you write the book. Because as a freelance writer, before I write a book for you, you need to see what I want to write about and approve it before I continue, before I even start writing. Okay, so in that case, your synopsis must come first before you write. So what I have said in summary, the synopsis can come before you start writing, if you are a freelance writer, and if you are writing your own book. And then a synopsis can come after you finish the book, if you want to send the book to a publishing house, or you want to send to an agent that will link you to a publishing house. Okay, so a synopsis gives you a skeleton or a template from which you can write your book. This part of writing an outline is the easiest part. If you can get a good outline, book writing will become very easy because you already know what to write. We're going to try something here, very soon. We're going to try to create a synopsis, and I'll show you how to do it. We'll break chapter like that, and we'll break it down. Next slide. Rules for writing synopsis. Number 1, it should be short and precise. Short and precise. I told you, no publisher has the patience to read your 200-page material before they decide whether they want to publish it or not. So what you need to do is to write a precise and a short synopsis that you are sending to the publishing house. So one of the rules of synopsis is that it should be short and precise. If your book is 200 pages, your synopsis should be less than 20 pages or even 10 pages. Just summarize the book. Next thing, now pay attention to this second rule. A synopsis for me, without giving you this rule, I'm sure most of you are going to fail rule number 2, because you are going to be telling me that in this book, I wrote about this, and that. In chapter 1, I wrote about this. That is what you probably would have written to me if I didn't give you the rule. But the rule says you cannot use first person. You cannot say, I wrote in the book. You cannot say that when you're writing a synopsis. I said the tense must be third person present tense. So she writes or he writes, or the author says, listen to what I said. He, third person, writes, not wrote. Present tense. Third person present tense. She writes, or she says in the second chapter of the book, or she explains, not she explained. It must be third person and it must be present tense. So when I ask you to write a synopsis, I don't want to see the author said. Said is past tense. I don't want to see that. The author is third person, but said is past tense. And the rule says it must be third person present tense. And I don't want to see I don't want to see that. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see second person. I only want to see third person. Now, look at this. I'm the one who wrote the book. Yeah? And I'm the one who is writing the synopsis. But when I'm writing, I will say in the second chapter of this book, the author explains. I'm the one that wrote it. I'm the author. But I'm not going to write in the third chapter of this book, I wrote and said no. That is against the rule. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, so we're going to do a test here today. You're going to write a synopsis for a book. I'll show you how to do it. So don't make the mistake of using a past tense, even though we know that what you are writing about. Yes, I'm going to tell you why it is so. Now, a synopsis is like somebody is trying to sell you. Okay, even though you are the one that wrote it. Most times, let me quickly say this. Most times, a synopsis is like somebody read your book and the person is giving a review of what is in the book. So the person is saying, the author writes, in this book, the author writes about the effect of economic recession on Nigeria. You get? Even though you are the author, but it's as if somebody is the one writing it for you. So that is the rule for writing. Because if you look at the back of books, most books, if you look at the back, you will see what is called a blob written at the back of the book, a description of the book. If you listen carefully, you will see that it is written in third person present tense. Even though it is the author that wrote that thing. But when you are reading it, you will not see, in this book, I did it, this and that. No. Okay? So that is the rule. I will show you examples here. Right? Sometimes agents are the ones that carry your synopsis to the publishing house. You don't meet the publishing house directly. So that synopsis that the agent is taking to the publishing house, it is as if the agent was the one that wrote it about you, who is the author. That is why it is in third person present tense. Is that clear? Good. So don't forget that rule. It should be in third person present tense. Now, it should contain the main points of the book. The main points. Not everything in the book. Because we said it's an outline or a summary. Okay? So it should contain the main points of your book. It should be written before you begin the book. Or after writing the book, as the case may be. I already explained that. You can write before, you can write after, depending on the situation. It should be in the same tone as the book. Now, there's a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, in that book is a very, the story he told in that book is very funny. So the tone of that book is very funny, puts you in a relaxed mood. Okay, while there are some other books that are argumentative. As you are reading the book, the author is trying to stress a point, argumentative. So whatever tone you are using in the main book should be what you use when you are writing your synopsis. Don't send a synopsis to me that looks like you are not serious. Whereas inside the book, you are very serious. I don't know if you understand the point. So if the book is argumentative, you are trying to strike a point or stress a point, let your synopsis also carry that tone that you are using inside the book. Okay, next slide. Now, steps to writing a synopsis. Steps to writing a synopsis. The most important thing you should know about what I said, the last slide, is that it should be short, should be in third person present tense, and it should contain the main points. Now, steps. The first thing you want to do when you're writing a synopsis, write about the benefits of reading your book. Remember, the synopsis is like you selling yourself. You are telling the publisher the reasons why they should choose that your book. for publishing. So the publishers want to see the benefit. What is the benefit of this, your book, to readers? Why should we choose your book and publish it? So your synopsis must write about the benefits of reading your book. It should promise readers how to solve a problem. I told you before that books are supposed to do what? Solve problems. That was what I said. So we want to see the benefits that the readers will get when they read your book. We want to see what problems are your books solving, okay? So write about the benefit of reading your book. It should promise readers how to solve a problem or achieve a goal. For example, to learn to better manage their finances. So in this book, the author writes about how people can easily manage their finances. So if I'm a publisher and I see that in your synopsis, that this book, you've already given the benefit of that book, what will I do? I will choose such a book. Or if I'm a client, you are a freelance writer, I said write a book about wealth creation. And then in your synopsis, I now see the line that says, this book talks about how to better manage your finances. I'll be very happy with you because you are writing on the topic I gave you to write. I can see the benefit of reading that your book. So don't forget that. Now, such statements that tell the benefit of reading your book also tell the publishers who your target audience are. So in your synopsis, you want to write, one, the benefit of reading your book, and that statement, for example, to learn to better manage their finances, also reveals who your audience is. If you are bringing a book to me that you want to publish, and I'm the publisher, I want to know who is this book written for. So in your synopsis, you'll be able to capture that, okay? Now, step 2, write. Now, pay attention to this. When you're writing a synopsis, write as an expert or an authority in the field. Don't write like somebody who doesn't know anything about what you are writing about. Because nobody wants to, publish a book written by an amateur, in that field. So talk as if you are very professional in that field. Now, how do you do that? I'm going to tell you how to do that. Tell agents and publishers why you are qualified to write on that subject. Now, let me give you an example. I told you I've written over 60 books. Yes? That is my CV. Okay? If somebody wants to read my book and the person sees that this person has written over 60 books before, you think that publisher will not consider my book? They will consider my book because that publisher already knows that this person is an authority in this aspect. So when you are writing, whatever you are writing about, write as if you are an expert, as if you are an authority, even if it's the first time you are writing a book on that subject. You must never show that you are ignorant of what you want to write about. Don't ever show that. If you show that you are ignorant of what you want to write about, nobody will take you serious. Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't say, in this book, the author is just trying to explain. No. Speak in such a way that this author has experience in this thing. He has lectured a lot of people on this subject. Or this author has done this and that. And he is putting this in this book. That's your credential. Shows that you are an expert already in what you are writing about. And I'm giving you this secret. When you start writing your book, let's say it is the first book you are writing about parenting. Write it as if you are the best parent in the world. Even if your own children are suffering, but we don't pray that they should be suffering. But write as if you are the best parent in the world. Because you don't want to show your weakness to the people who want to publish your book. Nobody wants to publish that kind of book. So write with strength, write with authority, write like an expert, as if you know what you are writing about. So that must show in your synopsis. Because before your agents carry your book to publishers, they want to be sure that this person's book we are bringing to the publishers, I hope this person knows his stuff. He knows what he's writing about. So you must write as an expert or an authority in the field. Number 3, write a short paragraph for every chapter. I told you this course is on non-fiction writing. In non-fiction, when you are writing your synopsis, okay, for if the book has 10 chapters, what you are talking about in chapter 1 might not be what you are talking about in chapter 2. That is why you need to write chapter by chapter synopsis, a short summary of what is in every chapter. But if you are writing like a novel, you are just writing a story of a girl who traveled abroad and got married, you don't need to write chapter by chapter synopsis. You just summarize the story. I don't know if you understand the point. Yeah, so you need to write a short paragraph of every chapter in the book describing the content, purpose, and the reader benefit. 3 things. 1, write about the benefit. Number 2, write as an expert. And number 3, write a short paragraph. So it means that if your book is 10 chapters, in your synopsis, right, I want to see 10 pages or 10 paragraphs. So 1 paragraph explaining what you wrote about in chapter 1, another paragraph explaining what you wrote about in chapter 2, like that. Yes, move to the next page. Yes.
Let's assuming I wrote a textbook.
Yes.
And it's about 20 chapters.
Yeah.
Will it be advisable to, in a way, to make, because one of the qualities of the synopsis is that it must not be too long,
yes,
but summarized. Can we merge 2 similar topics in 1 paragraph in the synopsis?
Okay, good. Now, good question. If you are giving your book, like I said, to publishers to publish, they want to know what each chapter of the book is talking about. So if you merge 2, they will not know which chapter and which chapter you have merged. So the best thing, now, if you are writing a book of 10 chapters, the total number of pages for that book might be up to 200 pages. 200 pages. But now your synopsis must not be more than 10 pages. It means that you can take 1 page to summarize everything you have written in chapter 1. And that chapter 1 in the original book might carry 10 pages. But now you squeeze that 10-page information into 1 page. That becomes the synopsis for chapter 1. Sometimes the synopsis for each chapter might not even be up to a page. Just 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs. You have summarized everything that you said in that chapter. So at the end of the day, your synopsis might just be 5 pages long or 10 pages long, whereas the main book is up to 100 pages, 200 pages. Do you get that? Okay. Now, there's a synopsis here we're going to look at. The book is titled Befriending Adversity. That's the title of the book. And we said the synopsis is an outline. Can you see an outline there? Before this book was written, you have created this outline already. So you pick what is chapter 1. You say chapter 1, for example, the title will be Adversity is Part of Life. That is what you choose as your chapter title. And I told you that every chapter must have sub-chapters. Because you want to explain adversity is part of life, but you need to break it down into sub-chapters. So we now have sub-chapters. Number 1, building a mindset and character development. How adversity changed my life, focusing on time and impact. So I have broken chapter 1 into 3 sub-chapters. So that gives me an outline already. When I start writing the book, am I confused about what to write about? No, I already have an outline of what I'm writing about. So the outline is almost like even your table of contents, this one. When you're writing a synopsis, put the table of contents like this. And then everything you wrote in chapter 1, now you summarize it in 1 paragraph, like that. So chapter 2, attitude is everything. You now break it down. Maintaining a positive attitude, never give up, failure is a teacher. So every chapter must have sub-chapters. Okay, next slide. When we finish this, each of you will tell me the title of a chapter of a book you want to write. Then we'll now pick a chapter title and break it into 3 subtitles. Now let's read this. Adversity is part of life. Would you help me read this time? So now this is a chapter by chapter synopsis. So this is synopsis for chapter 1 of that book. The book title is Befriending Adversity. Now read it. I'm going to draw your attention to. Can we zoom it a little bit? Can you say it?
While it is true that people often shrink away from adversity, difficulties, and life challenges, and often wish that life is completely void of them, The author in the opening chapter of this book asserts that what...
Hold it. What did you notice there? The author asserts, not past tense, not first person, not second person, first person. And see how they started. They didn't just say, in the first chapter of this book, the author did this and that. It started with an idea. While it is, read it again.
While it's true that people often shrink away from adversity, difficulties, and life's challenges, and often wish that life is completely void of them, the author in the opening chapter of this book asserts that whether we like it or not, adversity is part of life, and that everyone will at some point in their lives have a share of it, whether in their businesses or daily life.
Okay, now, the author asserts, and the author asserts something, which is the point the author wants you to know about the book. This book, you already know that this book is for people who are going through adversity. And the author is trying to tell them that don't give up, adversity is part of life. Can you see that now? And this is everything the author wrote in that whole chapter of 10 pages. But it has been squeezed or summarized into just this page. Yeah, go ahead.
She further states...
Hold it. Is it I further states? She further states. Third person, present tense. Okay?
She further states that it doesn't matter our financial status, political affiliation, religion, race, or nationality. We would one day come face to face with adversity, and the earlier we realize that and prepare for it, the much easier we would be able to handle and overcome it when it comes.
Can you see the benefit of this book already? The author is telling you to prepare for adversity. If you prepare for it, you'll be able to overcome it when it comes. Okay? Go ahead.
She says that cultivating
She says, go ahead.
She says that cultivating the mindset that accepts that no matter how superhuman we are, we would not have control over everything is key to overcoming adversity and challenges. Using
okay, go, yeah, read the last line.
Using her story to buttress her points, she explains how accepting that adversity is. She explains how accepting that adversity is normal and part of life.
Helped her
a lot in her entrepreneurial and parenting journey.
Okay, now hold it there. 3 paragraphs has summarized the whole of chapter 1 of that book. But in the main book, chapter 1 might be up to 10 pages. But she has summarized everything she said in chapter 1. And imagine that you are the author of that book and you are the one that wrote this thing. You are writing as if you are not the one that wrote it. She said, the author said, the author says, but it is you are the one that wrote it. You get the point? Good. That is it. Now, I worked on this book. I wrote that synopsis. A client gave me the book, and the client needs to see what I want to include in the book. So I wrote this synopsis and sent to the client. When she finished reading the synopsis, she sent me an email. She said, wow, that just reading the synopsis alone, it feels as if she should just publish the book, already. Why? When you write a good synopsis, your client will accept it. Your agents, your publishers, they will all accept it. Even if you have not read the book, just with what you have read now, you already know what the author is writing, the benefit of reading the book, and you see the language that the author used. Now, you will see that there are some quotes included in the synopsis. So you are free to put quotes in the synopsis, but let the quotes be talking about the idea that you are stressing in that book. You can get anybody's quote, put the person's name, and put it there. Move to the next one. Okay, no, go back. So, this is chapter 2. I told you write chapter by chapter synopsis. The first one we read was chapter 1 synopsis. Now this is chapter 2 synopsis. The principle is the same. Third person, present tense, make it short. State the benefit that the readers will get from the book. So that is how to write synopsis. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next slide. Now, we are moving into lecture 3 and 4. Now, your synopsis assignment I'm going to give to you, you are going to do it during I said I'm going to give you about 10 minutes break. Not now. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes break. In that break, you are going to pretend like you are writing, you write just one paragraph. Just one paragraph. Choose the title of that chapter. Let's call it chapter 1. Choose any title. Then do as if you are writing a synopsis you want to send to me. I'm the agent. And tell me what you wrote in that chapter. Do you understand? Just like we read now. You will do something like that. I'm going to stretch you. Okay? Good. Now, lecture 3 and 4, quickly. I'll do lecture 3, and then I'll give you a break, and we continue. Move to the next slide. Yes, you have a question? I saw your hand up, too. Hello, sir. I saw your hand. You wanted to ask a question? Yes.
Can you make a direct citation from the book you are writing? Because towards the end,
yes,
you made it was more like a citation. That was why I was also struggling to understand that part.
Okay. Now, most of the things that are there are things that are already inside the book. If you are writing this synopsis after you have written the book, you can just copy some lines from there and say, in this chapter, the author says this. That thing is already in the book. I don't know if you get the point. You can do that. Yes, anything you say in the synopsis must appear in the main book. Because you cannot tell us in the synopsis that the author asserts that adversity is part of life in your synopsis. And then when we look at the main book, we cannot find that information that you told us. So what is in the synopsis and what is in the main book must match, because we said the synopsis is a short summary of what you are about to write in the book or what you have already written in the book. Is that okay? Good. Yes, let me hear your question.
Doc,
yeah.
You did mention about agent.
Yes.
So I want to ask question to that regard.
Yeah.
Please, what is the importance of having an agent?
Okay.
And what is the challenges of also having an agent?
Okay, thank you. So this particular question is supposed to come when we're talking about publishing an agent and all of that, okay? But I'll just mention it, why you need an agent. Just the way you are looking for a house, yes? You don't want to go about looking for a house by yourself. An agent will help you and connect you to where there is a house. So the agents are middlemen that connect you to the publishing houses. That's it. What is the disadvantage? You will pay them money. If you don't want to pay them money, you go and look for publishing houses by yourself. Because agents will get part of the money, whatever sales you make from your book, they are going to get some money from it also. Next question.
Sir, I just want you to clarify me on something.
Yeah.
This synopsis you've been saying, I've read a book, I want to know if that is synopsis, where after reading, the person has finished summarizing, like not the author.
Yeah.
This one is not the author. Especially lecturers' books. You see it, and at the end of it, you will see the lecturer that has written it and their department. Is that a synonym? If that is a synonym, then my second question.
Synopsis.
Synopsis, rather. So is that a synopsis?
Okay, so if I get you correctly, a lecturer wrote a book.
Yes.
And then another person wrote summarizing or explaining what the lecturer wrote in that book. The person is giving a review of the lecturer's book, yeah? So that is a book review. Okay. If you put your book on Amazon, for example, people will go there to buy your book. If you know them, you can tell them to leave a review. So they leave a review after reading your book. They share what they think about your book, the lessons they learned about your book, or they tell other people what you wrote in the book. So that book review looks like a synopsis also. But the goal of a synopsis, we said, is for publishers, freelance writer to your clients, and to guide you to write the book. But the book review is that somebody has read your book, and the person is now summarizing or telling other people about what you wrote in the book. So there are two different things.
My last question, sir.
Yeah.
You said synopsis is a brief summary.
Yes.
Sorry to say,
yeah.
I was taught that summary is not more than 2 to 10 lines.
Yes.
That is what I was taught from my primary to my university.
Yes.
And now you are saying that if you have 100 pages,
Yes.
at least your write-up should be at least 10 pages.
Okay.
Why I was taught that no matter how big and lengthy your story is, it shouldn't be more than 10 lines. Then you are not actually summarizing, rather you are narrating what is there. So I want to know, is this definition in line or is just a mistake?
Good. So this definition is very much in line. Now, what they taught you in primary school about you're writing essays or you're writing novels or summarize, that is very different from writing a book of 200 pages. If you write 10 lines, this book is, where is this book? This book, it's about 146 pages, right? 146 pages. If you write it to me in 10 lines, I cannot understand or have a complete idea of what is here. And I don't know what you have written in one chapter or in the other chapter or in the other chapter. So imagine I gave you work to do as a freelance writer, and then you just write 10 lines and send to me. I'm lost. I don't have an idea of what you want to put in my book. So that is why you need to do a chapter by chapter synopsis explaining in summary. For example, what is in chapter 1? Everything you wrote in chapter 1 now, you also arrive it in one sentence. Because if you are going to use that, your 10 lines that you are saying, it means that a book of 10 chapters, I will summarize everything I wrote in chapter 1. Chapter 1 that has 10 pages. I'm going to use only one line. So it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so that definition is good for classroom, literature, and all of those things. Yes.
I think what those 10 lines they gave to you, they were trying to help you remain focused. That just stay within those 10 lines and you can do an effective outline or summary for that book you're writing. I think that's what they are trying to achieve. Not a strict rule of the thumb guide for all outlines. I think so.
Thank you. So there's something we call academic writing and non-academic writing. Academic writing is schoolwork. The rules are different. This is non-academic writing. So those rules might not work. Yes, will not work here. Okay? Good. Now, quickly, I'm going to take us to how to write introduction. I already showed you a table of contents, right? I showed you a table of contents. And we're going to create a table of contents for your book. Maybe just one chapter and 3 sub-chapters under it. I think let's do that first so that we can remove sleep from our eyes. Yes, let's do that first. So now, you are going to choose the title of your book. Maybe you already chose the title before. Now, give chapter 1 a title. What do you want to be the title of the chapter 1 of that your book? Then once you get that title, now create 3 subtitles under that chapter 1. Can we do that quickly? Let's do that quickly. Anybody who has, if you have your title already, or you want us to help you create it, just tell us the title of the book, and then I will tell you what you should put in chapter 1. And then we'll now take that chapter 1, we'll now break it into 3 subtitles or 2 subtitles. Who is ready? Let's start. Okay? Please give her the mic. Everybody should be thinking about the title that they are creating and the subtitle.
Okay, my title is Singles.
Singles.
And then the subtitle is Their Shortcomings and How to Overcome Them.
Okay.
So I want to know, okay, you said you were going to guide us.
Okay, you want me to give you what should be in your chapter 1?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do that for everybody. But I wanted to engage your mind to think. You want to try? Now, okay, some of you can even suggest. She has given the title of the book, Singles. And the subtitle is what? Shortcomings and how to overcome them. So how do we now create chapter 1 and subtitles for that book? You want to say something?
Okay. My title is Politics.
Okay.
The Purity of Politics.
Okay.
That's the subtitle. title.
Okay.
Then
Chapter 1.
for the chapter 1, the first one will be politics and introduction.
Good. Politics and introduction.
An introduction. The second one will be politics, a misconception.
Beautiful.
Then the third will be purity.
Beautiful.
Purity.
Beautiful.
Then the fourth will be relationship between purity and politics.
Okay, now if you put 4 sub chapters under one chapter, make sure that you have enough other ideas that you will put in chapter 2 and chapter 3 and chapter 4. Depends on how many pages you want to write for the book. If, for example, you want to write 10 chapters for that book, and you put 4 sub-chapters in one chapter, it means that you need 40 sub-chapters to get the whole book. Okay, so what I will advise you, either you create one chapter, chapter 1, then you put 2 sub-chapters. Okay? But if you are very sure that you have a lot of ideas you want to write about, you can make it 3. But I think 4 might be too long, because by the time you get to chapter 2, you might not have anything to write in chapter 2 again. Do you get the point? Okay, but good job, good job. Now, I'm doing this just for you to know how to do it. I'm not really particular about what topic you choose, but I want you to know how to break it, okay? Because that is the problem with writing. Most people are stuck because they don't know what's next to write about. So, but you must first create that outline and break it down. I saw one hand up.
My topic I gave before, coded.
Coded.
Subtopic, the importance of reading.
The importance of reading.
I'll give chapter 1, decision making.
Decision making.
Then sub-chapters, why you must start now.
Okay.
Second one, how to begin.
Okay.
Then I'll take the synopsis. So the author introduces his first step on how to begin cultivating the habit of reading and creating time decisively to read. Second paragraph, he further explains the importance of taking a step towards achieving this goal. Third paragraph, he also further explains what the outcome of the decision will be.
Can we put our hands together for him? Did you see that he applied the rules of synopsis writing? He gave us synopsis, gave us title, gave us subtitle. So if you continue like this, I give you 10 days. You can finish this book. If you're able to create the outline and then sit down and discipline yourself, you finish the book. Yes, who's the next person?
My book, Pair Group.
Pair?
Yes, group.
Okay.
I have my topic, communication. Then under it, I still have families and I have school. Then I wrote in my synonym, synopsis,
okay, that
everyone communicates to one another, even animals do same. But what you communicate, what you say in terms of communications matters a lot.
Yeah, but I didn't finish it. You have just given a line. You now need to go ahead and say that in this book or in this chapter, the author says this or that, or the author explains this and that. So I would love to hear that. Do you understand what I'm saying? What you just said now, you just gave us a statement of fact, but we have not seen the place of the author. Okay, what the author is saying or how the author explains that point. Okay, and if you are choosing a chapter title, your sub-chapters must be in line with what the chapter title is. You cannot pick a chapter that is talking about finances. Chapter 1 talks about how to become rich, while the sub-chapter of that is now how to keep a lasting marriage. Do they rhyme? No, so you cannot do that. So your sub-chapters must be in line with the chapter. Everything you are writing in those sub-chapters, you must point back to the title chapter. Is that clear? No, you are lost. Are you lost? Do you understand it? If you don't understand, raise your hand. I will explain again. So I said that your chapter 1 title must not be different from what you are putting in the sub-chapters. The sub-chapters must connect to the title of that chapter. Is that okay?
I'm learning.
Yes.
Trying to put some things in correction.
Yes.
Say, don't give up, for it is not over.
Okay.
Then, starting of the letter,
Yeah.
of the write-up, for you to know that it is not yet over, one have to put on great efforts to achieve success. The first title there, the first one there is life and what it takes.
Okay.
2, great storm and quiet time.
Okay.
3, learning from your past mistakes,
Okay.
and correct it.
Okay, good. So you got a part of the sub-chapters, but for the synopsis, I believe that when you constantly practice, and I'm going to tell you later at the end of this course, I have a school where you can enroll into, and I'll be guiding you for the next 6 months, step by step, teaching you how you'll be able to develop your ideas and your books. Okay? Good. So,
okay, my title is Mentors and Mentees.
Okay.
Subtitles, 10 Effective Ways of Being a Mentee.
Okay.
Chapter 1 is Your Mentor and You.
Okay.
Under chapter 1 is Knowing Mentors.
Okay.
The second one is Knowing Your Mentors.
Okay.
And the synopsis for chapter 1 is, I wrote, for everyone or everything that was made had a maker. In this book, the author reveals the integrity of knowing who to make you and how to go through making.
Can you applaud him? Beautiful. So I love to hear in this book, the author explains, or in this chapter, the author says this and that. That is how you write the synopsis. Third person, present tense. Thank you.
The title of my book is Excellent Mind Child.
Okay.
Then the chapter 1 is Making God your number one priority in life. Then my synopsis is the author explained the importance of knowing.
Not explained.
The author explains.
Good.
Author explains the importance of knowing God, the origin of knowledge. 2, the author also encourages the audience to study hard.
Beautiful. But let me correct something. Instead of saying the author in the first line, and the second line you now say the author again, you can now say, in the second line, you now say, she says, or she further states, or in addition, she said. Okay? Beautiful.
Okay, praise God.
Hallelujah.
Book title, Family Bliss.
Okay.
Subtitle, How to Enjoy Your Marriage.
Okay.
Chapter 1, The Origin of Family.
Beautiful.
Subtitle or content under chapter 1, How Family Started.
Nice.
The Purpose of Family. The First Family.
You know why I love this? Chapter 1 must define basic concepts of that topic that you're writing about. So he's telling us how marriage started, how family started. Beautiful idea. That's what your chapter 1 should be. Because your readers should be able to understand the chapter 1 and the concept of what you're talking about before you now move to other chapters. Good job.
Synopsis. Every man is a product of his or her family. And this book, according to the writer, explains that God started the first family. He says that family bliss is possible and that God started family to represent him here on earth.
We are publishing that book in Jesus' name. You see that book? Maybe before this year is over, you have to publish that book. Okay? Good job. So quickly, let's run through how to write introduction and table of content, and then I'll give you 10 minutes to stretch yourself, and we take the next one. Your introduction is perhaps, now what you wrote now was synopsis. This now is introduction. Every book has an introduction, okay? Now your introduction is perhaps the most important chapter of your non-fiction book. Your introduction is perhaps the most important chapter of your non-fiction book. It will determine whether readers will continue reading or become uninterested and drop your book. Now, I want to tell you this. No matter how good the content of your book is, if your introduction does not make any sense, people will just drop the book and they will not get to that beautiful content that is inside the chapters. So write a good introduction. Your introduction is one of the most important chapters in your non-fiction book. It will determine whether readers will continue reading the book or they will become uninterested in the book and drop it. Next slide. Facts about introduction. Facts about introduction. An introduction is an explanation of the entire book. That is the wrong mindset. Now, pay attention to this. Some people think that an introduction is an explanation of the entire book. But I'm saying that that is a wrong mindset. Your introduction is not an explanation of the entire book. Because if you are going to explain the entire book, you know how many chapters that will take? So your introduction is not an explanation of the entire book. So take note of that. It is not an explanation of the entire book. Number 2, most readers skip the introduction. That is a mindset that you have. For example, this book has an introduction. If you bought this book and you wanted to read, will you skip the introduction or you will read the introduction? You will read the introduction. So the mindset that says that most readers skip the introduction is not true. Most readers do not skip the introduction. They might skip dedication, they might skip acknowledgement, but they want to start with the introduction. So most readers actually read your introduction. And that is why you must be very careful what you write in your introduction. You must make it in such a way that it will spur the readers to want to go into the book itself, to continue reading the book. If you write, anyhow kind of introduction, they might just say, this guy is not serious. They will drop the book and they don't want to continue reading it. Now, that someone is reading an introduction does not mean they are going to finish the book. What determines whether they will finish the book is how good the introduction is. If the introduction is good, they want to continue reading the book. If the introduction is bad, they just dump the book and they don't want to read it anymore. So that is why you must write a good introduction. Now, people say that the introduction to a book must be written first. That is not true. I'll tell you why that is not true. Why that is not true is because, like I told you, I've been doing this since 2016. That's 7 years now I've been into this. And all of the 50 books I've written, most times it is when I finish writing the book that I now write the introduction. Why? Because when you finish writing the book, you have a better grasp of the content of the book. So when you are writing an introduction, you know how to capture the content that is already in the book. But if you are writing an introduction before you write the book, honestly, I can bet you that by the time you finish writing the book, you might come back and change that introduction. So I will advise you, before you write the introduction, finish the book first. When you finish the book, you have known everything that is inside the book, then write an introduction. That kind of introduction is more powerful and better than the one you write before. So know that introduction must not be written first. You can write it at the end of the book. Next slide. Functions of an introduction. What does an introduction do? So an introduction helps to engage your readers, preparing them for the main content that is in the book. Your introduction will help your readers to establish trust. Whether they will trust you or not is what they see in the introduction. From the introduction, they can already tell the kind of author or whatever you are going to write in the book. They can tell from your introduction. So a good introduction helps your reader to trust you and they want to continue reading the content that is in the other chapters of the book. So your introduction also keeps your readers interested enough to read the rest of the book. So these are the functions of an introduction. They engage the reader, they establish trust between the reader and the author, and then they keep the readers interested enough to read the rest of the book. So you need to have a good introduction. Now, how to write an introduction? Very important. This is very important. Introduce the general concepts of the book. Pay attention to that. Write it down. To write an introduction, introduce the general concepts of the book. And what is the general concept of the book? What problem is this book solving? You must put it in your introduction. So that even if I didn't see the synopsis of the book, and I did not read acknowledgement, I did not read dedication, the first thing I'm reading is the introduction. So I want to see the concepts. I want to see what problem the book is solving in the introduction. So you introduce the general concept of the book, what problem or issue the book will be addressing, as well as your solution to the problem should be in your introduction. Number 2, reinforce the reader's impression that this book might meet their needs by explaining who it is written for. So your introduction must tell us who you wrote this book for. Okay? First, you tell us the problem you are solving with the book. Secondly, you tell us who this book is written for. That must be in your introduction. Number 3, underscore why the reader needs this book. So emphasize the reason why the reader needs this your book instead of another author's book. There are other authors that have written about how to create wealth. But why should they read this your own book about wealth creation? You must state it in the introduction. The introduction must tell the readers why your book is better than another author's book. Then explain why the reader should trust and listen to you. Because, like I said, you must write as an authority. Write as an authority. Write as a professional. Tell them what you have achieved in this field, in this sphere of life before. So that you prove to them that you can, your book has substance in it. So introduce general concept, tell the problem you are solving, reinforce the reader's impression, that this book will solve their problem or meet their needs, and then underscore the importance of your book compared to another author's book. Why should they choose your book over another author's book? And then explain why they should trust you and listen to you as an authority. Next slide. Your introduction ought to make the readers, number 1, interested in your book from the get-go, from the beginning. From the beginning, they must be interested in your book when they read the introduction. 2, clearly identify the reader's pain or problem. I told you before that nobody wants to read a book that you are just talking about yourself. They want to see their problem in your book and the solution you are giving. So your introduction must tell them that in this economy, most people are living less than $2 a day. There is increasing rates of poverty in the nation. But this particular book has a solution of how to create wealth and live above $2 and live in abundance. What have you done? You have identified their problem, which is poverty, living below $2, but you are not telling them that this book is going to solve that problem. You have practical steps to show them of how to make money and live, an abundant life, even in an economy where there is recession. Anybody who sees that kind of thing in an introduction says, no, I need this book because this man is speaking to me, speaking about my problem and is granting solution to my problem. Outline briefly what the reader will learn in the book. So in this book, the reader will learn this, and that. You put that in your introduction and explain why you are an expert or authority on this subject. Having counseled, married people for 20 years, I have heard stories of marital problems, and I have put all the lessons that I have learned in these 20 years of counseling into this book. Who doesn't want to read a book from somebody who has been counseling, marriage for 20 years? You want to read it. So what he has done by saying that is to tell you that I'm an expert. I have 20 years counseling experience. I've been solving marital problems for 20 years. And I have put all the stories and the lessons I have learned for these 20 years in this book. So when you see that, you say, oh, this guy must be a very good guy when it comes to marital problems. And of course, that book has to be a book about marriage. If it's a book about money, don't tell us that you have 20 years experience in marriage counseling. Do you understand what I'm saying? You might be an authority in marriage counseling, but you are not an authority in financial creation or wealth creation. So whatever you are telling them you are an authority in must be related to the topic of the book that you are writing. Is that clear? Good. Get the reader committed from the get-go. Next slide. Now, don'ts of an introduction, what you should not do when you're writing an introduction. Don'ts of an introduction. Don't make it a summary of the book. We said the summary of the book is the synopsis. Is that not true? Yes, not the introduction. So the introduction is not the summary of the book. Take note of that. So don't make it a summary of the book. And don't make it narrate entirely a story that is already in the book. Pay attention to this. I'm going to repeat that. Your introduction should never narrate entirely a story that is already in the book. If you wrote, for example, in chapter 3 of the book, how you had a fight with somebody and you got arrested by the police, that story you have told us in chapter 3. Don't narrate that whole story in the introduction. No, don't do it. You might just mention that you were arrested because you had a fight. But don't tell us the whole story, because the whole story is already inside the book. And then, don't explain everything that is in the book in the introduction. The goal of the introduction is just to prepare the reader, to stir them to want to read the main book. So if you tell them everything in the introduction, why should they read the main book? They don't need the main book anymore. Okay, don't make it too long. Your introduction should not be too long. Don't include an out-of-the-point story that might bore readers. Don't include an out-of-the-point story in your introduction that might bore readers. Don't tell us a story of how you had a fight with somebody and got arrested, whereas the book is talking about how to have a successful marriage. There's no connection between that story and the book title. So don't tell us such stories in your introduction. Don't make it too long. Don't make it an autobiography. So don't tell us your life story in the introduction. The introduction is not about you. It's how to identify your reader's problem and telling them how, to solve it. Tell them why they should go into the book and find the solution to their problem. That is what the introduction is about. Don't focus on the author. That is what I said. Don't focus on the author and his message, but on the reader and what they stand to gain from the book. That is what your introduction should be talking about. Next slide. Good. Now we're going to read. Now I want all of you to pay attention to this. I just said that you should not include your entire life story in the introduction. Did I say that? Yes. And I also said, even if you want to put a story in the introduction, don't take a story that is already inside the book and narrate everything in the introduction. Don't do it. As first-time authors, I will advise you, don't start your introduction with a story. Don't do it. I'm going to show you an example of an introduction with a story and without a story. Sometimes for professional writers, they can start their introduction with a story, but that story must be very intriguing, that the readers want to finish that story and see how the story continued in the chapter 1. Only on that condition. But for now, don't do that. I'm going to show you how to write a simple introduction. Now, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was it the first page? Okay, no, let's do this one first, yeah? So I think this book is this book I'm holding here. This is this book I'm holding here. So this book is Principle of Financial Prosperity by Apostle Ziliagri. Okay? Have you seen this book before? Good. Now, that is the introduction of the book. Let's see what Daddy wrote here about the book. What is the title? Principles of Financial Prosperity. So the rules I gave you about introduction, let's see how we can identify them in this introduction. Can you help me read? Please pay attention, everybody.
The world is currently facing a global economic crisis, partly due to the coronavirus pandemic that halted economic activities 3 years ago, and the war between Ukraine and Russia.
Hold it. What is the title of the book? Principle of Financial Prosperity. Is there any word like economic recession there? Did you say economic recession there? Does it relate to the title? Has Daddy identified the problem? What is the problem? Economic recession. What caused the economic recession? The war in Ukraine and Russia plus the coronavirus pandemic. So he has identified the problem. Now, he needs to now tell us how to solve that problem. Do you understand? Go ahead.
As inflation hits many countries, more people are being plunged into poverty daily like never before, and the gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider. According to a recent World Bank report, it was estimated that the combined crisis above would lead to an additional 75 million to 95 million people living in extreme poverty on less than $2 a day.
Did you see that? Problem clearly identified. Target audience clearly identified. Who is the book meant for? Poor people. People who are living in a country where there's economic recession. So he had identified the audience. He had identified the problem. Now, how do we solve the problem? Why do they need this book to solve the economic problem?
Okay. And majority of these extremely poor people live in sub-Saharan Africa. In Nigeria alone, 84 million citizens live in extreme poverty and struggling to survive. Things do not look like they will get any better in the nearest future, as the goal of the World Bank to eradicate poverty by 2030 is currently being...
Now, the World Bank said they were going to eliminate poverty by 2030. But because of the war in Ukraine and the pandemic that we had, even World Bank, they are not even sure that they can meet that target. But Daddy has a solution. That is how you sell yourself. Even World Bank, they are not sure that they can solve the problem. But Daddy is going to tell you in this book now that he has a solution to the poverty problem. Principles of financial prosperity. So that's how you write an introduction. Yeah, go ahead.
Is being threatened and far from reach due to the effects of the Ukraine-Russia war and the COVID-19 pandemic. While the world is battling to curb the inflation and ever-increasing poverty rates, the richest people in the world are getting richer and seem not to be affected by the global economic crisis. Why is this the case, you may ask? It is because there is something the rich know that most average people do not know.
You see what he did there? He said, even though there is poverty everywhere, the rich are still getting richer, while the poor are getting poorer. So there must be something that the rich know that the poor do not know. It is that thing that I want to teach you in this book. Don't you want to read such a book? You want to read it. You want to buy that kind of book. You want to continue reading the chapters. Because if World Bank is not even sure that they can eliminate the poverty, and the poor they are getting poorer, but the rich are getting richer, there has to be something that the rich know. So what Daddy has done, he has drawn your attention. He has hooked you such that you want to go into the chapters to see these principles that can solve this economic crisis. Go ahead.
The rich understand the principles of financial prosperity. They know how to generate and build lasting wealth. If there was ever time to teach people how to create lasting wealth and live in financial prosperity like the rich, it is now.
This is the time to teach people about financial prosperity because there is a problem. Okay?
That is why I have written this book.
That is why he has given you the reason why he wrote the book. And what is the title of the book?
The Principles of Financial Prosperity, with practical steps to build lasting wealth. The greatest service you would do to yourself is to carefully digest all the principles and apply them to your daily life.
He's not giving you reason why you should read the book. Okay? And the benefits you will get from the book.
This book should be in the hands of everyone. Parents, youths, Christians, Muslims, students, employed, unemployed.
What is that? Target audience. He's not listing the target audience, the people that should read the book. Okay?
Civil servants, businessmen, poor, middle class, rich, etc. There is absolutely no reason to live in poverty or perpetual lack in a world that is blessed with inexhaustible resources, while a few people live in stupendous wealth. You too can become wealthy and live in abundance. God's desire is for you to prosper and not be in lack And this book will teach you how to move from a middle class or poor person to becoming one who has lasting wealth.
What is that line doing? This book will teach you, what is the line doing? The line is giving you the benefit or what you will learn from the book, okay? I implore you to read. Yeah, that's the next line, right?
I implore you to read every chapter of this book without skipping any, as each chapter has unique principles and lessons that will help you navigate your way to financial abundance faster than you envisage. The time is now. There is no need to procrastinate. Delve into the pages and walk into your wealthy place.
Clap for daddy, clap for daddy, clap for daddy. You see how he ended that introduction? He said there's no time to procrastinate. Delve into the pages of this book and go and discover the secrets of the rich. And if you look at this book, it says, Principles of Financial Prosperity, Practical Steps to Creating Generational Wealth. Who doesn't want to create generational wealth? Everybody wants to. So you want to pick the book, read it, and go into the pages. Now, what this introduction has just done is to stir you to go and search for the principles in the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, like that. Yeah. You see, he did not mention the principles. Did he mention the principles? No. He only said that the title of this book is Principles of Financial Prosperity with Practical Steps. So it is your duty to now enter chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 to find these principles. Is that not a beautiful introduction? Put your hands together. So this is the kind of introduction I want to see in your book when you start writing. You see this introduction now is just maybe 2 pages. Just 2 pages. Because we said it should not be very long. Don't explain everything that is inside the book. He did not even mention one of the principles in the introduction. But you are already hungry to go and find out the principles inside the book. That is how you write it. Beautiful, beautiful introduction, I must say. And in this introduction, he did not tell his life story in the introduction. He didn't. He did not even take a story from inside the book to put there. No, he didn't do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that is how you should write your introduction. So this is an example of introduction that did not begin with a story. For first-time authors, please write this type of introduction. Now, I'm going to show you an introduction where you start with a story. If you are a professional author, you can start with a story. Now, this book is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Everybody, please pay attention to every line of this book. This is the introduction of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you are going to put a story as your introduction, it should be so captivating, so interesting, that people want to continue reading and find the continuation of that story inside the chapter 1. Let's get started.
Having 2 dads offered me the choice of contrasting points of view, one of a rich man and one of a poor man.
Wait, hold on. Please, I can go on my knees. Pay attention to everything. Now, I'm not reading this particular story just to teach you how to write introduction. There are lessons I want you to pick from this particular story that Robert Kiyosaki used. So pay attention to it. Okay.
I had 2 fathers, a rich one and a poor one. One was highly educated and intelligent. He had a PhD and completed 4 years of undergraduate work in less than 2 years. He then went on to Stanford University, the University of Chicago, and Northwest University to do his advanced studies, all on full financial scholarships. The other father never finished the 8th grade. Both men were successful in their careers, working hard all their lives. Both earned substantial incomes. Yet one always struggled financially. The other would become one of the richest men in Hawaii. One died leaving tens of millions of dollars to his family, charities, and his church. The other left bills to be paid. Both men were strong, charismatic, and influential. Both men offered me advice, but they did not advise the same things. Both men believed strongly in education, but did not recommend the same cause. The same cause of study. I had had only one dad, I would have had to accept or reject his advice. Having two dads offered me the choice of contrasting points of view, one of a rich man and one of a poor man. Instead of simply accepting or rejecting one or the other, I found myself thinking more, comparing, and then choosing for myself. The problem was that the rich man was not rich yet, and the poor man was not yet poor. But we were just starting out on their careers, and both were struggling with money and families. But they had very different points of view about money. For example, one dad would say, the love of money is the root of all evil. The other would say, the lack of money is the root of all evil.
Hold on. Read that line again.
For example, one dad would say, the love of money is the root of all evil. The other would say, the lack of money is the root of all evil.
He's contrasting two fathers that he had and how they see money. When you read an introduction like this, you must learn lessons. That line that he just said is a huge lesson that you must learn. One thing that money is the root of all evil. The other father thinks that the lack of money is the root of all evil. Why are people going into armed robbery? Is it not lack of money? What of hookup? Is it not lack of money? So the first father will say, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And because of that, he doesn't want to work hard. He doesn't want to work hard to make money. He's lazy, he doesn't want to live. He says, we'll leave everything here on earth and die and go to heaven. So he's not working hard. But the other one said, no, it is the lack of money that is the root of all evil. Go ahead. Yes, one complements the other to strike a balance. Okay.
As a young boy, having two strong fathers both influencing me was difficult. I wanted to be a good son and listen, but the two fathers did not say the same things. The contrast in their points of view, particularly about money, was so much extreme that I grew curious and intrigued. I began to start thinking for long periods of time about what each was saying. Much of my private time was spent reflecting, asking myself questions such as, why does he say that? And then asking the same question of the other dad's statement. It would have been much easier to simply say, yeah, he's right. I agree with that. Or to simply reject the point of view by saying, the other man doesn't know that the other man doesn't know what he's talking about. Instead, having two dads whom I loved forced me not to think and ultimately choose a way of thinking for myself. As a process, choosing for myself turned out to be much more valuable in the long run than simply accepting or rejecting a point of view.
Next page.
One of the reasons the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class struggles in debt is that the subject of money is taught at home, not in school. Most of us learn about money from our parents. So what can poor parents tell their children about money?
What can poor parents tell their children about money? Nothing. And you go to school for 6 years, 4 years, do master, do PhD, there is no one class on money. And when you come out, you have certificates, but there is no money. You are going everywhere, there is no job, but you went through school. Nobody taught you about money. And you live, depend on your parents to tell you about money, but your parents themselves are struggling to survive. So what would they teach you about money? Nothing. Go ahead.
They simply say, stay in school and study hard. The child may graduate with excellent grades, but with a poor person's financial programming and mindset. Sadly, money is not taught in schools. Schools focus on scholastic and professional skills, but not on financial skills. This explains why how smart bankers, doctors, and accountants who earned excellent grades may struggle financially all of their lives. Our
Hold
staggering...
on. You know that some of the best students in your class when you were in school, they are struggling to survive financially. Why? Because academic excellence is not the same thing as the knowledge of money. So you have to have financial intelligence beside knowing mathematics and chemistry or anatomy and physiology. Okay?
Our staggering national debt is due in large part to highly educated politicians and government officials making financial decisions with little or no training in the subject of money.
Next one. So, okay, go ahead.
Today,
this introduction is longer because it is a story. That's why it is longer. And I want us to read it because there are lessons that I want us to learn from the introduction. Not just how to write, but the financial lessons, okay? So bear with me, okay? Yeah.
Today, I often wonder what will soon happen when we have millions of people who need financial and medical assistance. They will be dependent upon their families or the government for financial support. What will happen when Medicare and Social Security run out of money? How will a nation survive if teaching children about money continues to be left to parents, most of whom will be or already are poor?
Terrible, terrible situation. That's what we're experiencing in this country. And that is why from one economic recession to another, more people are entering into poverty every day. Go ahead.
Because I had two influential fathers, I learned from both of them. I had to think about each dad's advice, and in so doing, I gained valuable insight into the power and effect of one's thoughts to one's life. For example, one dad had a habit of saying, "I can't afford it." The other dad forbade those words to be used. He insisted I ask, "How can I afford it?"
Hold it. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," what should you say? "How can I afford it?" When you say, "How can I afford it?" it engages your mind to think about ways to go and look for that money. You know, all the ideas that were hidden. They say adversity is the mother of invention. When there is adversity, you begin to think about how to find solution. Instead of just saying, "I cannot afford it," and then you relax. Ask, "How can I afford it?" Okay?
One is a statement and the other is a question. One lets you off the hook and the other forces you to think. My soon-to-be rich dad would explain that by automatically saying the words, "I can't afford it," your brain stops working. By asking the question, "How can I afford it?" your brain is put to work. He did not mean that you should buy everything you want. He was fanatical about exercising your mind, the most powerful computer in the world, he would say. He would say, "My brain gets stronger every day because I exercise it. The stronger it gets, the more money I can make." He believed that automatically saying, "I can't afford it," was a sign of mental laziness.
True.
Although both dads worked hard, I noticed that one dad had a habit of putting his brain to sleep when it came to finances, and the other had a habit of exercising his brain. Long-term result was that one dad grew stronger financially and the other grew weaker. It is not much different from a person who goes to the gym to exercise on a regular basis versus someone who sits on the couch watching television. Proper physical exercise increases your chances for health, and proper mental exercise increases your chances for wealth. My two dads had opposing attitudes, and that affected the way they thought. One dad thought that the rich should pay more in taxes to take care of those less fortunate. The other said, "Taxes punish those who produce and reward those who don't produce." One dad recommended, study hard.
Pay attention to these points now that he wants to read.
One dad recommended, study hard so you can find a good company to work for. The other dad recommended, study hard so you can find a good company to buy.
Did you see the difference? One is studying hard to become an employee. The other one is studying hard to become a CEO of a company. You see, this same man wrote a book, Why A Students Work for C Students. People who got A in school, they are the ones going with a file looking for a job everywhere. And the owners of the company are people who got C while they were in class. Why? Lack of financial intelligence.
One dad said, the reason I'm not rich is because I have you kids. The other said, the reason I must be rich is because I have you kids.
Did you see that? If your father is blaming you that he's poor because of you, then he's a poor dad. But if your father is saying, because I have you, I need to work hard to become rich, he's a rich dad. And if you are young, you are here, begin to program your mind. What kind of dad do you want to be? You want to be a rich dad or a poor dad? If you have not read this book, I will encourage you after this training, go and look for it, buy it and read it. The title is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Go to, okay, just finish this page.
One encouraged talking about money and business at the dinner table, while the other forbade the subject of money to be discussed over a meal. One said, when it comes to money, play it safe. Don't take risks. The other said, learn to manage risk. One believed, our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset. The other believed, my house is a liability. And if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble. Both dads paid their bills on time.
Stop there. You know what that guy just did? There are a lot of people who think that because they own a house, that is an asset. But he just debunked that ideology. And if you are reading the introduction and you see such a thing, you want to question, how dare you debunk our ideology? So that will make you want to go and read the book. You are telling me that a house that I have is not an asset, or is not the best asset. So this kind of story like this will challenge the reader to also go in to continue reading the book. I told you at your level, don't start introduction with a story like this. But Robert Kiyosaki, the big guy, is known in the industry, so he could do this. And the story that he's giving is an interesting story between two fathers. So you want to read it and continue reading. Now, go to the next slide. Okay, so read the last page of this introduction. Don't start from the down.
Okay.
Although both men had that place. Let's see how he rounded off the introduction. Okay. Did the last page, yeah? Okay. So start from because I was only 9 years old.
Because I was only 9 years old when I started, the lessons my rich dad taught me were simple. And when it was all said and done, there were only 6 main lessons repeated over 30 years. This book is about those 6 lessons.
Did you see what he did? All that story that he was saying, he's now summarizing it to 6 lessons. You see that? And this book is about those 6 lessons. And now you have to go and read the chapters to find those 6 lessons. You get it? Okay.
This book is about those 6 lessons, put as simply as possible, just as simply as my rich dad put forth those lessons to me. The lessons are meant not to be answers, but guideposts that will assist you and your children to grow wealthier, no matter what happens in a world of increasing change and uncertainty.
Thank you. So that is the introduction. After all the story, he now brought it to 6 points that you need to learn inside the book. Like I suggested at your level, don't start with a story when you're writing your introduction. Just use the format that is in this daddy's book, okay? This format is easier for you. Later, when you become popular and you have written a lot of books, you can now start your introduction with a story. Let me see what we have on the next slide, quickly. Okay, so I'm going to give you a break.